A child's imaginary friend shouldn't remember you 10 years later. But when Emily returns to her childhood home, the whisper that once lived under her bed has been waiting patiently and very, very hungry. You think imaginary friends disappear when you grow up? Think again. This is One More Game. Welcome back to Silent Scream, everyone. If you love stories that make your heart race and your lights stay on all night, you've just stepped into the right place. For my returning subscribers, welcome home, brave souls. You know how deep the shadows go here. And to all the new listeners joining us tonight, stay close, don't look away, because once you start this story, you'll feel like someone's standing just behind you, whispering for you to keep listening. Now, let's begin. The first time Emily heard the voice, it came from the dark corner of her room where the moonlight never reached. It was soft at first, like the whisper of dry leaves on a still night. "Emily, do you want to play?" She had been 7 then, small enough to still believe in fairy tales, big enough to know shadows shouldn't talk. Her mother called it imagination. Her father laughed it off, but the voice didn't stop. It grew curious, then familiar, then possessive. By the time she turned 8, Mr. Wren wasn't just her imaginary friend, he was her secret. He told her which games to play, what to draw, when to smile. And when she disobeyed, the room grew cold. Toys moved on their own, the air pressed down, heavy as guilt. Tonight, 10 years later, Emily was back in that same room. The house had been empty for years, dust thick on every surface, but the moment she crossed the threshold, she heard it again, soft, delighted, and impossibly near. "Emily, you came back." And she remembered the final thing he had ever said to her before she left. "You can't leave me forever. You still owe me one game." The old house on Thornfield Lane looked smaller than she remembered. The shutters hung loose, the once white porch now gray with rot. Wind moaned through the chimney, and the trees leaned close as if listening. Emily stood by the gate, her suitcase at her side, the key heavy in her pocket. She had promised herself she would never return, but her parents were gone now, both lost to the same accident that had left their car folded like paper on the highway. There was no one else to claim the house. The lawyers had insisted she come in person, sign the papers, take possession, or sell it. She had almost refused. Then she dreamed of the whisper again. She told herself it was just memory, just the echo of a lonely child's invention. Still, her fingers trembled as she turned the key. The door groaned open, breathing stale air and something faintly metallic. She stepped inside. The hallway stretched before her, long and narrow, the wallpaper peeling like old skin. She could almost see her younger self running barefoot through it, her laughter bouncing off the walls. But the laughter had always ended with a whisper. Faster, Emily. They'll see us." She shook the thought off and set her bag down. The air was colder than it should have been. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, the sound was muffled, as if the house were holding its breath. In the kitchen, she found the light switch. Nothing. The power had long been cut. She lit a candle instead, its flame flickering weakly. The wax smell mingled with dust and mold. She unpacked only what she needed for the night: a flashlight, her phone, and the papers from the lawyer. Upstairs, her old bedroom door was still painted sky blue, though the color had faded to the gray of old dreams. She hesitated before opening it. The air inside was colder still. Her toys were gone, donated, sold, or simply discarded, but the shape of the room remained the same. The small window, the dented desk, the closet door slightly ajar. "Just wind," she whispered, closing it firmly. The candle flickered. Then, very softly, "Welcome home." She froze. The words came from behind her, no louder than a breath, but unmistakable. She turned, flashlight cutting through the dark. Nothing. Just the empty room. "Mr. Wren," she said before she could stop herself. The name tasted strange after all these years. She forced a shaky laugh. "You're not real. You never were." The candle went out. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then, something brushed her hair, a cold, fleeting touch. She gasped and stumbled back, fumbling for the matches. Her fingers shook as she struck one, lighting the wick again. The flame trembled wildly, as if disturbed by a hidden breath. On the wall, a shadow seemed to move on its own. A tall shape, too thin, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. "Do you still want to play, Emily? We never finished our game." Her heart bounded. She said, "You're not real," but she was backing away, candle clutched like a weapon. He laughed then, a sound like rust scraping metal. "You left before I could show you what happens when you lose." The light flared, then dimmed, and in that dimness she saw it. Faint writing scrawled across the wall above her bed. It hadn't been there before. The candlelight made the letters shimmer as if written in something wet. "One more game." Her mind raced. She wanted to run, to leave the house and never look back, but she remembered how cold it had been outside. The storm had rolled in fast, thunder rumbling through the hills. The lawyer's car wouldn't return until morning. She was trapped until then. "Fine," she said, aloud, though her voice cracked. "One game." The whispered purred, pleased. "Hide and seek." The candle blew out again. This time she didn't relight it. Instead, she gripped the flashlight, sweeping its beam across the room. "Rules?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You hide, and I'll find you. If I do..." A pause, a slow, delighted sigh. "You stay." Her throat tightened. "And if you don't?" The silence stretched. Then the voice said, almost thoughtfully, "Then I go back to sleep." She took a trembling breath. "Deal." The beam of her flashlight cut through the dark as she slipped into the hallway. The air was thicker there, heavy with damp. Somewhere below, a door creaked open. She moved quickly down the stairs, across the creaking floorboards. She remembered every inch of this house, every hiding spot she had used as a child. Behind the drapes, under the stairs, inside the pantry. But he remembered too. So she went instead to the cellar. The door moaned on its hinges. The smell hit her first, earth and rot and old wood. She descended slowly, her light cutting a narrow path through the dark. The cellar was small, lined with shelves of empty jars. The concrete floor was cracked, a dark stain spreading from one corner. She crouched behind a support beam, breath shallow. The house was silent again. Then, faintly, creak, creak. Footsteps about her, slow, patient, searching. "Emily?" The voice floated down the stairs, soft and sing-song. "Where are you hiding?" Her grip tightened on the flashlight. The beam flickered. The footsteps drew nearer. She could almost see him now, tall and crooked, the faint outline of limbs too long, moving with a kind of broken rhythm. The beam died. Total darkness. She could hear him breathing now. Or maybe it was the house. She couldn't tell. "Do you remember what I promised you?" She whispered, so close it felt like his lips brushed her ear. "You said you'd never forget me." Something cold traced her cheek. She screamed, swinging the flashlight blindly. It clattered against stone, shattering the silence. When she turned it back on, the cellar was empty. She stumbled upstairs, heart hammering. The storm outside was raging now. Wind slammed the shutters, rain lashed the windows, and in the flicker of lightning she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the hall mirror, pale, wide-eyed, trembling. And behind her, just for a second, another face leaned over her shoulder. A smile too wide, eyes too dark. She turned, but the hallway was empty. It's the house, she told herself. It's memory. It's guilt. She had left him alone all those years ago, after all. She remembered now, the last night before she left. She had been 8, crying in her bed. Mr. Wren had wanted her to play hide-and-seek. She'd said no. He'd gotten angry, so angry that the room had grown cold, then the lights had burst. Her mother had rushed in, found her crying, said something about an imaginary phase. They'd moved out the next week. But she remembered one more thing, something she hadn't thought out in years. Before she left, she had hidden something under the floorboard of her closet. The last drawing she had made of him. A tall, faceless man with hollow eyes and too many fingers. Her breath caught. That's where this had started. Maybe that's where it had to end. She ran upstairs, back to her old room. The door swung shut behind her with a slam. She fell to her knees, prying at the loose floorboard until it lifted. Dust rose in a choking cloud. Beneath it lay the drawing, faded but unmistakable, and something else. A small wooden bird, carved crudely, painted black. Mr. Wren. She lifted it, and the temperature dropped instantly. The candle flared to life on its own. "Do you remember now?" the voice asked gently. "You made me. You gave me a name. You gave me a heart." The bird pulsed once in her hand like something alive. She dropped it with a cry. It hit the floor and cracked, releasing a hiss of dark smoke that curled upward, forming a shape. Tall, lean, shifting in the flicker of light. "Let's finish our game," it whispered. Emily stumbled back, reaching for the window, but the glass had frosted over. Her breath clouded it white. The thing that had been Mr. Wren took a step closer, its limbs bending wrong, its face rippling as if it's struggling to remember what a face was. "You shouldn't have come back," it said, voice breaking into 2 tones.
The house on Thornfield Lane stood empty once more. Dust settled over the cracks, the silence thick and waiting. In the corner of the upstairs room, something blackened and twisted lay beneath the floorboard. A small wooden bird split neatly in 2. Weeks later, a realtor came to photograph the property. She walked through the rooms, noting the decay, the chill. In the next room, her camera lens frogged for just an instant. When she checked the photo later, she frowned. There was a shadow in the image, tall, thin, leaning toward the window where no one stood. And faintly, across the wall, barely visible in the faded paint, were the words, "One more game." The realtor deleted the photo, uneasy without knowing why. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, soft and low, like the rustle of wings. "Emily,"